Hi, folks, and welcome to today's webinar, Breaking Free from Acne Naturally. With us today, we have Dr. Stacey Shillington, and Dr. Shillington is going to be discussing her own personal history with this, as well as how naturopathic medicine addresses issues like acne. I'm really excited to have you today. Next slide, real quickly. So I'm just going to cover some housekeeping before we get started. And so everyone here today is going to be in listen only mode. We do ask if you have questions during the course of today's webinar that you please use the Q&A function. The chat can get a little unwieldy with trying to track questions and responses. So if you do have some questions during the course of today, please use the Q&A. We will send a recording out of this in the coming days as well. And if you have any questions, as always, please email us at info@aanmc.org. So as I stated, this webinar is being recorded. It's not eligible for continuing education, and reproduction is not allowed without expressed permission. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Shillington, and thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to share my story with everybody and specifically how I treat acne from a naturopathic perspective. So most importantly, I'm Dr. Stacey Shillington. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I've been in practice for almost 20 years. Most importantly, though, I'm a former acne sufferer. Acne took over my life and changed my personality, and that is what actually led me to become a naturopathic doctor. So I'm also the founder and the creator of the best-selling Advanced Clear Skin program. This is a program that's helped thousands of women heal their acne throughout my career. And I love the work that I do. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. When I was on the pill for about 10 years, when I came off in my late 20s, my skin exploded in acne. Now, I was not familiar with naturopathic medicine at this point. I wasn't familiar with any type of natural healing at this point. So my skin exploded in acne, and right away my personality changed. I went from being really confident, outgoing, very successful to seriously wanting to curl up in a fetal position and avoid the entire world because I was so embarrassed about my acne. It affected every part, my social life, my career, and my relationships. And I tried everything. I was desperate to get my life back, as so many of my patients are. I tried oral antibiotics. I tried topical medications. I tried skincare. I tried different treatments, diet, supplements, you name it. I tried it. I did not want to go back on medication, though. That was the one thing I just really felt in my gut, that I didn't want to go back on the birth control pill or take spironolactone or antibiotics or Accutane. But I didn't know what else to do, and my doctor couldn't help me. My acne persisted, and I just started to feel very hopeless. And I know when a lot of my patients come to me, that's how they're feeling. So in a last ditch effort to try and solve my acne, somebody suggested I go to see a naturopathic doctor. I really had no idea what naturopathic medicine was about. But when I sat down with a naturopathic doctor, they said to me, you are never going to be able to heal your acne until you heal your body from the inside out. And that was like my aha moment. A light bulb went off of me, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. There's something going on inside of me that's preventing me from having clear skin. I need to figure that out, and I need to heal my body. And everything changed for me. And I decided to go back to school to become a naturopathic doctor so I could learn how to heal my own skin, and then I could help other people heal their skin as well. So that was many years ago. I graduated in 2006, and since then I've helped thousands of women heal their acne. And over the years, I've refined my protocol, and this is what I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to share my 3 secrets to clear skin with you. So get out your pens and your papers, especially if you have acne, because this is how we address acne from within. So the 3 secrets. The first secret is there are 4 pillars of clear skin that cannot be ignored. And this is just how we generally balance the body, and we really address 4 different organ systems that are involved in acne. The second secret is that we have to understand the root cause of acne. Often, I go through the four pillars of clear skin with my patients and their skin will clear up no problem. Other times acne is more persistent and we have to dig deeper and we have to understand precisely what's going on. And I'm going to go through this with you in just a moment. And then the third secret is mindset. And this has to do with the nervous system. And the nervous system is such a hot topic now because we know if our nervous system is not regulated, if we're stuck in our fight or flight, our sympathetic nervous system, our body actually is not going to heal. So we have to shift our mindset. We have to nourish and heal our nervous system in order to get the results that we really desire. So let's start with the first secret. I'm going to share with you the 4 pillars of clear skin. This is the key to balancing the body from within when acne is present. And, I very rarely been able to heal a case of acne without addressing these 4 pillars. So the first pillar is inflammation. If you have acne, your body is inflamed because acne is inflammation. So right off the top, we have to reduce inflammation in the body. And probably the number one way to do this is to reduce inflammatory foods. So I always describe inflammatory foods, and these include gluten, dairy, and sugar. I describe inflammatory foods as fuel and the inflammation in our body as fire. So when we're eating inflammatory foods, we are actually putting fuel on the fire of inflammation. We are making that inflammation worse and worse and worse. And it's really difficult to heal the body when you're constantly feeding inflammation. So when we can remove certain inflammatory elements, then the inflammation, the fire starts to go down and we're actually able to heal. So an anti-inflammatory diet I find is incredibly important when it comes to healing acne. Probably the number one most inflammatory food is dairy. There's now a ton of research to back that up. It's pretty indisputable, but sugar is actually a very, very huge contributor to inflammation, and gluten, especially if there's gut issues. Gluten just really damages the gut lining, and getting rid of it is very helpful. So this is a diagram of the gut lining. On the left-hand side, you can see the cells are very calm, they're very tight together. On the other side, this is a gut that is inflamed. The gut lining is inflamed. And you can see that when there's inflammation, there's spaces in between the cells of the gut, and that's when different toxins, inflammatory mediators get into the bloodstream, and then we start to experience systemic inflammation throughout our entire body. So really calming inflammation is very important. So pillar number 2, and I really love this. When I first heard this phrase, it was like such a great moment for me because it's so descriptive. Acne is diabetes of the skin, and it is so true. When we're able to regulate blood sugar and insulin levels, we're really able to get a good handle on acne. So insulin is like a key. And what it does is it's on there's an insulin receptor on a cell, and insulin turns the key and it opens up a glucose channel. And this allows glucose to leave the bloodstream and go into the cell, and glucose is the food for the cell. Now, what happens is when insulin receptors are not working, when we're experiencing insulin dysregulation, glucose doesn't enter the cell, and so signals are sent to the body to produce more and more insulin. This is insulin dysregulation. And when we end up having high insulin levels in the blood, this triggers an increase of IGF-1, and this triggers the increase of androgens. Now, androgens are the hormones in the body that are going to directly increase sebum production. This is oil production in the skin, is going to dysregulate keratinocyte shedding. That's how the skin actually exfoliates. And it's also going to inhibit ovulation. All 3 of these actions leads directly to acne. So insulin dysregulation and acne are so closely connected, it cannot be ignored. So, some things you can do to really start to regulate insulin levels. I mean, diet, of course, this is a big one. having 3 meals per day, including protein, reducing sugars. That's really one of the most basic things that can be done to start to regulate blood sugar and insulin. Pillar number 3, inner congestion equals outer congestion. Acne patients are notoriously poor detoxifiers. It is very rare that I'm able to heal acne without addressing drainage and detoxification. So, drainage and detoxification are not the same things. Drainage is everything that facilitates the movement of toxins from the cells outside the body. And naturopathic medicine is so good at doing this. I really believe we are masters at facilitating drainage throughout the body. And, facilitating drainage, it's an ancient practice. It goes back thousands of years. Now, on the other hand, detoxification is a process where we actually it's done at a cellular level, and we process toxins so that they can be safely removed from the body. So detoxification happens within the cell, and drainage is when we take those toxins and remove them from the body. So, being sure to address both drainage and detoxification is critical when it comes to healing acne. I love this diagram. The diagram on the left shows a body that is draining and detoxing properly. And on the other side, we see a body that is not draining and detoxifying properly. And the rate limiting step here is constipation. So, when we have constipation, automatically everything is going to be backed up. Toxins are not going to be leaving the body. And if everything gets backed up, the toxins are going to try to be excreted in another way. The body's very smart. It knows it needs to get rid of these toxins. And one of the major ways it does this is through the skin. The skin is actually the largest organ of detoxification in the body, and it's going to take up the slack when the body isn't adequately detoxifying on its own. So that's why it's so very important to really address drainage and detoxification. And another note, many acne patients have genetic polymorphisms that prevent efficient liver detoxification. I find that poor detoxification is the root cause of acne in many patients. Of course, it leads to a lot of damage. It leads to a lot of infections in the body. But once we can clear the body and continue to support detoxification, that's how we can really maintain clear skin, for a long period of time. All right, so these are some of the symptoms that you may experience if you are not draining properly and if you're not detoxifying properly. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just scan through these quickly. And if you see that I would say 3 or more apply to you, you may want to seriously look at how your body is draining and detoxifying and support your body if necessary. There's so many great ways to do it. All right, so pillar number 4 is the skin is the gut's mirror. What goes on in the gut shows up in the skin. This is the famous gut-skin axis. I know when I was a student in naturopathic medicine studying, this was drilled into us all the time. There is a very strong connection between the gut and between the skin. And now we have loads of research that really explains that in more detail. So when we have a healthy gut microbiome, we're going to have a healthy skin microbiome. When we have dysbiosis in the gut, which means the microbiome is not balanced, then the microbiome on the skin is not going to be balanced. And we're going to experience defects in the moisture barrier. And this is going to lead to water loss. This is also going to lead to inflammatory cytokines that's going to create inflammation in the skin. So everything is definitely, connected between the gut and the skin. And of course, we know the gut is important. We know that it is very important to have a healthy gut. When we have a healthy gut, we're protected against pathogens. This is where a lot of our fat soluble vitamins are synthesized. This is where our immune system is developed and fat storage is promoted. There's so many things that happen in the gut. We need a healthy gut in order to experience healthy skin. So when we do have poor gut health, one of the things that we really experience is an increase in stress because the gut produces more than 90% of the body's serotonin. A lot of my patients, when they come to me, there's a lot of anxiety. And of course, we can understand this because when your skin is not in great shape and, this, inflammation is what the world sees when they look at you, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with that. But it's increased by the fact that a lot of acne patients, a lot of skincare patients or skin patients, their guts are in disrepair. And when your gut is in disrepair, you don't have the neurotransmitters available to really, allow you to calm down and feel good within yourself. So healing the gut is really important for, any patient that's experiencing skin issues. Poor gut health, it's also going to, cause insulin imbalances. A lot of, chronic infections in the gut can affect GLP receptor sensitivity. And, poor gut health is also going to lead to drainage and detoxification congestion. So, what leads to this epidemic of poor gut health that, we're experiencing, not only amongst skin patients, but I would say amongst most of our patients. And, pretty much everything that is in our environment is contributing to poor gut health, from sugar to stress, toxins, both environmental toxins and endogenous toxins as well, alcohol, pathogens, food sensitivities, damage from NSAIDs, those are like Tylenol and Advil, drugs, antibiotics, radiation. So there's a lot of things that contribute to poor gut health. So it's really important that we're always aware of what our patients' guts looks like. So how do we go ahead and heal the gut? Now, there are so many different aspects to the gut that I really believe in testing. I don't typically guess when it comes to healing the gut. When it comes to drainage and detoxification, there's a lot of, and insulin regulation, there's a lot of general therapies that, are beneficial for most people. But when it comes to healing the gut, this is when we really have to dig in and understand. Okay, so now I'm heading into secret number 2, and this is focusing on the root cause of acne. So we've reduced inflammation in the body. We've balanced insulin levels. We've focused on drainage and detoxification. We've taken a look at the gut, and yet acne is persisting. What do we do? So, I diagnose patients with chronic acne when it's been around at least 3 or more months. It doesn't respond easily to medications, diet, skincare, basic supplement. Basically, this is my patient who's tried everything, nothing has worked. I see a lot of these patients. Acne is usually cystic, and the acne can be hormonal, meaning it fluctuates with the menstrual cycle, or not. And often it can be on the cheeks and it doesn't fluctuate. So the one thing that I really want to emphasize, and most patients with chronic acne come to me, they feel hopeless. They've tried everything. Acne is impacting their life in a very serious way. But I just want to emphasize, chronic acne does not mean your acne is too complex or hopeless. It just means that we have to dig deeper to really understand what's going on in the body. I see chronic acne as a canary in the coal mine. It's a sign that there's a deeper imbalance, and we need to find out what's going on so we can heal our patients at the deepest level possible. So I use functional medicine testing. My very favorite test, GI mapping test. I do this all the time on every patient. I think I'm at a point in my practice now where I don't feel I can heal acne properly without looking at a GI mapping test. And then, putting that together with an organic acid test really gives me a full picture. Functional medicine blood work, always. And then depending on specific symptoms within a patient, I may do the Dutch hormone testing as well. I may do the mycotox test. I may also do environmental toxin test. I didn't put that in here, but that's another one I often do. So what do I often find in patients that have acne? And, I see these things often, and I'm not going to say I usually see this or I usually see that, because I see all of these things on a consistent basis. So I see bacterial, yeast, and parasitic infections often. A lot of parasitic infections, more than people would probably want to know about, but it's out there, it's real, we have to deal with it. Mold exposure. I see a lot of mold exposure. Tons of microbiome imbalances, a lot of digestion issues, people not breaking down fats properly, not having enough enzymes, immune imbalances, a lot of gluten intolerance, a lot of insulin imbalances, thyroid imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, dehydration and electrolyte imbalances, hormone imbalances, poor detox pathways, specific toxin exposures, and of course, cortisol dysregulation. So needless to say, it's really difficult for people to solve chronic acne on their own. And yet, I find so many of my patients before they come to see me, they've spent months on Instagram looking for the magic acne cure. They're looking for that skincare product that's just going to take them to the next level, or they're looking for that one supplement that's just going to change their life forever. But as you can see, this chronic acne, this situation is complex. You definitely need some professional help. Otherwise, you're guessing, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, and you're prolonging your experience with acne, which is not pleasant for anybody. We do not want to live with acne. It's such a burden on our confidence. It's such a burden on our ability to really live fully. Um, so I'm going to briefly run through these tests with you just so you can get an idea of what I see with these different tests. So with the GI mapping test, this is a stool test, and this gives me an insight into pathogenic microbes. Whether or not there's an H. pylori infection, I often see that with acne patients. If there's a deficiency in beneficial microbes, if there's overgrowth in opportunistic infections, and we're talking about bacteria, viruses, candida, parasites, intestinal health markers. This is how people are able to digest their food, the state of the immune system within the gut, and gluten tolerance as well. So as you can see, you get so much information from this test. I find it just so exciting every time I get to read one. Yeah, we're going through that. And then the organic acid test. This is a really special test because whereas the GI mapping test gives me an idea of what's going on in the gut, the organic acid test lets me know what's going on at a cellular level. So it's more systemic. And I love this test because I can see if there's been any mold exposure, if there's systemic candida. Then I also get into a whole bunch of other things like how you're metabolizing your carbohydrates, how you're metabolizing your fats at a cellular level, how you're metabolizing amino acids, your neurotransmitters. We can take a look at your nutritional markers. We take a look at, whether or not there's toxic exposures and how your body is detoxifying. So there's a ton of information that I get from this test. And, I really find now if I just do a GI mapping test, I feel like I'm missing such a huge part of the puzzle. I feel like, okay, these are a lot of things I really need to address, but oh, I wish I knew about this, that, or the other thing. So the GI mapping, the organic acid test, they just really are such a nice pair. I love them. Then there's the Dutch test. So often when people come to see me, they think that that's going to be the first test that I run because, of course, acne is often hormonal. And that's very true. I do find the Dutch test gives me a lot of great information, but the information isn't as actionable as a GI test or an OAT test because, I will see that hormones are imbalanced, but we always have to ask the question, why are the hormones imbalanced? And usually the hormones are imbalanced because there's an underlying, cause of inflammation, whether it's infections, whether, it's mold. So I find that I love doing the Dutch test. I love the information that it gives me. But, if money wasn't an issue, I would really love everybody to do all the tests. But, I find that I just am able to be more actionable with the GI test and the OAT test. But this is a great test too. And then functional medicine blood work. I always look at blood work because it gives me a great overview of the different systems of the body. And as naturopathic doctors, we look at blood work using functional medicine ranges, means we look through a very narrow, not very, but a much narrower reference range than a conventional doctor. We're able to see patterns. We're able to see, we're just able to understand the body through a different lens. And, I love doing blood work. It's hard for me to treat without blood work just because I get so used to having so much information and having a very direct idea of what I need to do. Okay, so let's talk about secret number 3, which is mindset magic. And this has to do with your nervous system. And, this probably should be secret number 1, but I put it as secret number 3 And usually we don't give the nervous system enough importance. We focus a lot on diet, we focus a lot on supplements, we focus on, the parasite infection or this or that. But really, if the nervous system is not supported, if the nervous system is not balanced, it's going to be incredibly difficult to heal the body. So, I always say to my patients, we need to take back your power. You know, True. My patients are in this situation because their bodies are unbalanced. The foods have not been healthy. They've been exposed to toxic supplements. They've been put on too many medications. They've not been taught how to attain true health and vitality. And we've been conditioned to adhere to a beauty ideal that leaves people out. This is not my patient's fault at all, but it's our responsibility to heal ourselves. And I can't emphasize that enough. It's kind of like, let's just put the past behind us and let's focus on what we need to do now to heal. And we need to use our minds to help us heal more than anything, because we really need to affect our nervous system. So, often my patients come to me and they're worried. They're worried about this clear skin journey. They think maybe the diet's going to be too difficult. They're not going to be able to have any fun anymore. They're not sure if they're going to be able to do it correctly. They think that, healing naturally is going to be too stressful, or maybe they tried diet changes before and they failed miserably. And if they don't do it perfectly, they shouldn't do it at all. So when they're in this mindset, they're in a mindset of survival. It's a sympathetic nervous survival mindset. And I need to shift them to more of a creation mindset, the parasympathetic nervous system, where they actually make things happen, take responsibility, and kind of surrender. Because when you're stuck in survival, your body cannot heal in this state. It's too busy fighting for survival, constantly being on the lookout for threats, and not being able to surrender into the parasympathetic nervous system, where we're actually able to heal. So there's no other option if you are going to heal properly than to balance the nervous system. And I'm going to give you just a couple of things that I share with my patients. Number one is to get into flow state. And in order to do this, you want to find an activity that you love to do, whether it's cooking, whether it's dancing, maybe it's playing with your kids or playing with a pet, something where when you engage in this activity, you lose time, meaning that maybe you do it for 30 minutes, but you feel as if only 10 minutes have gone by. When you can do something like this 20 minutes twice a day, this is when your nervous system really starts to be able to shift into a parasympathetic state. You start to notice the difference. The other thing that we want to do is we want to retrain the limbic system. We want to understand that we are the observers, that we're able to step back. And when we step back, we're able to see how we're thinking. And this is one of the reasons why I really love meditation, is because it allows us to see our thoughts, what we're thinking. And when we're able to do that, then we're able to retrain those thoughts. We're able to catch ourselves, engaging in thought patterns that are not beneficial, and rewire those thought patterns. And I mean, it is a process. It does take time, but this is key to rebalancing the nervous system and then toning the vagus nerve as well. This is something that is going to shift us into the parasympathetic nervous system. Things such as laughing, singing, cold showers, gut healing, and acupuncture. These are all ways to really try and access that healing part of our nervous system. And, I always encourage my patients to develop this goddess mindset. And when you're in this mindset, you are acknowledging that your body is healing and that you're giving it the time and the love that it needs. It's not like you're checking off a list and wondering the next thing you should do when you're on a schedule and you've got to achieve this, that, and the other thing. That's not what we're going for. You want to, feel gratitude. Gratitude is a huge part of the healing process. Gratitude to have this opportunity to heal, to be able to have access to all these wonderful, foods that are so healing, etc. And know that you're doing your best, trusting your body, knowing that your body knows what to do. The body wants to heal. It wants to be in a state of homeostasis. We need to give it the tools that it requires, but then we need to sit back and have time and give the body time and cultivate the patience to really allow healing to happen. So I think that is all. There's one last slide, which is what I love about naturopathic medicine. And Naturopathic medicine is a calling. It just is. If you have been called to serve by healing people, then really there's no other choice. I know, like, I just couldn't do anything else. I can't imagine having another career, going down another path. You know, being a naturopathic doctor, you change lives. You help people live happier, more joyfully, freer, healthier. And, you know, it's like coming back home. It's like coming home to our natural state, the state in which, as human beings, we are supposed to live. Um, that we're supposed to be healthy, we're supposed to be happy and joyous, and know that we are beautiful beings. And I really feel that naturopathic medicine is the calling to help people achieve that. So I hope that this presentation has helped you. I hope it's inspired you. If you're suffering with acne, I hope that it's given you a playbook. It's how to approach healing your skin. And, if you are so inspired to become a naturopathic doctor, I really hope you follow that calling, because it is the most rewarding, career out there in my experience. So thank you very much.
That was just so inspiring. Thank you so much, Dr. Shillington. I have a question for you, if you don't mind. If you were to give your younger self who was starting this profession some advice, what would you have told your younger self getting started?
Oh, wow. That's a really great question. The one thing that really comes to mind is to really develop some great mentorship, have some fantastic mentors, because when I first graduated, I did not do that. I went out and I started practicing on my own right away. And I feel like, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. And if I had really good mentorship, I feel like I would have avoided that and I would have been able to help people much better, far more quickly. Yeah.
Wonderful. So there's a question here in the Q&A, and I know that, I just want to give a little bit of disclaimer. We are not giving any personal advice. No medical advice is being given on today's webinar. If you do have any questions that are specific to you or someone you care about, probably the best way forward is to find a doctor near you. There are search tools to find a naturopathic doctor near you, both in the United States and in Canada, as well as different states and different specialty organizations. So I would highly recommend, if there are specific questions related to you personally, this is probably not the best place to get medical advice. So that said, there are some questions for just surrounding supplementation. And I know you talked about addressing the root cause, so this is probably going to vary pretty widely. But this is something that I think teens, and you talked about the different hormonal fluctuations often are going through. So how would you lead a teen through this process? Somebody who is, still learning how to maybe take care of their skin and, are going through a period of hormonal change themselves.
Mhm. Yeah, so the one thing about teenagers that is very specific when it comes to healing acne is they have very high levels of growth hormone because they're growing fast. So, when there's high levels of growth hormone, that can trigger high insulin levels. And as I explained earlier, when we have high insulin levels, that's going to affect the oil production in the skin. That's going to affect how the skin exfoliates. And for women, for females, it can inhibit ovulation. So really paying attention to diet is key for teens. And I understand that this is difficult because teens like to just go out and have some pizza. And, I have two teenagers myself, and, it's hard to really regulate diet a lot of the time. But I find when teens adhere to a really good diet, a lot of inflammation comes down. But then, I also treat teens as regular adults because I need to look at their guts, and I need to look at, their blood work as well to really understand what's going on. I need to support detox. So, teens have a great vitality. Often they heal quite quickly, but, often they still have overgrowth within their gut. They still can be poor detoxers. So I have to look at those things as well.
And thank you. And kind of a follow-up question to that, blackheads and maybe, various different kind of aspects of skin issues.
Yeah, so I mean, when blackheads are present, it's the same. I'm always looking at factors that are going to increase sebum production in the body. So as a naturopathic doctor, I'm definitely investigating what's actually going on. But, there is a place for really good skincare. There is a place to, you know, a- assist the body in exfoliating optimally. So I find that, an exfoliant such as mandelic acid can be very good topically for blackheads. Well, of course, we're addressing the inner work that needs to be done. You don't want to be reliant on mandelic acid for the rest of your life, but using two in conjunction can be very helpful.
Thank you so much. Um, any tips or tricks to talk about drainage? You talked about drainage in the beginning.
Mhm, mhm. Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many great things for drainage. I mean, one of the very first things I recommend for patients is to first thing in the morning when you get up, you want to do a warm drink. Usually I love doing a nettle tea with half a lemon squeezed into it, a bit of sea salt. Something like that is good to just start draining the body. Castor oil packs can also be very helpful for drainage. However, you don't want to go too much too quickly with castor oil packs because they can be very strong. So start maybe twice a week, 20 minutes with a castor oil pack. That will help drainage as well over the liver. So those are two things, but I also tend to use a lot of complex homeopathy in my practice to help with drainage. I find that that's magical, but that's something that you really need to see, somebody that's well trained in to get the best, combination for you.
Beautiful. Can you talk about maybe some of the seasonal changes that happen and the impact of seasons with skin? I know I studied traditional Chinese medicine many, many moons ago, and addressing the seasons is core to that approach. So, can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the seasonal changes? I know we're heading into the summer now. We just came out of the winter and dry skin season and all of that. So can you speak a little bit to how our skin changes with the time of year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna answer that question in the context of acne specifically. I think one of the biggest seasonal changes that I see with acne is that in the summer, acne can get worse for patients a lot. And there's a lot of different factors that, contribute to this. It's hot, so there's going to be a lot more heat and there's a lot more humidity. And the heat and the humidity can trigger yeast on the skin called malassezia, and malassezia, can, create fungal acne. So I see a really big, way abundance of fungal acne in the summer amongst my patient population. So, it's really important to address any systemic yeast infections for sure to prevent this from happening. You want to keep the skin cool as well. When the skin heats up, that can be a contributor for fungal acne as well. And then heading more into the cooler months, especially when we have a lot of heat on, that's going to be very drying. The heat's just going to suck moisture right out of the skin. So we really have to pay attention to, moisturize the skin both externally and internally. Those are the two ones that really come to mind, when I think about the skin and I think about the seasons.
Thank you so much. So there was a question here regarding commensal bacteria on the GI map. And, when you're seeing various different things coming back on some of the lab tests, what are the big clues? How do you address things naturopathically?
I see so many different things coming back. So there's not like one specific thing I always see. I mean, when we're talking about the beneficial bacteria, I see a deficiency in the phyla. I also see overgrowth in the phyla, and I would say it's 50-50. It's not always a deficiency because it often depends on the presence of H. pylori or not, what that common cell, what that phyla looks like. So, it really depends on the patient. It depends on, the opportunistic overgrowth that I see as well, how I'm going to treat that. So, some of the things I see a lot of H. pylori, I see a lot of low phyla, I see a lot of high phyla. I can see, Akkermansia being really deficient. I can see Faecalibacterium being really deficient as well. I see a lot of overgrowth of staph and strep. So, I think that you just really have to have a really good understanding of how to read a GI mapping test. And, that just really comes with reading a lot of them over and over again, understanding the patterns and, through your clinical experience, understanding how to treat the various patterns that are presented. I'm not sure if that really answered the question, Dr. Yanis. Did it?
No, you're doing great. I think, there are some specific questions here about, and it's, probably we could do a whole webinar on various different topical things like sunscreens and, the current trend of beef tallow and all of that. Can you talk about, people who are prone to having clogged pores and breakouts, how what are the things that they should look for? And we're not going to plug any specific product, but what are the things that they should be looking for when choosing a sunscreen or a lotion or a moisturizer or a cleanser?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question because if you go out there and you're trying to purchase skincare, it's frankly overwhelming. There are so many different products out there. I mean, I get overwhelmed and I do this all the time. And I think that, what I've come to do with my patients is I use very simple ingredients. I use very simple products. It's all very gentle. There's a couple of really great skincare lines that I've discovered that are fantastic. Um, but there's not a lot that works across the board. I will say that. Like I've tried, I've had like several lists of really great products that I love for my patients, and I'll send these lists to them. And some people react to certain products, some people will love the certain products. So there's a handful of products that I find work for everybody. And, it's probably not what everybody would expect. It's very simple. It's usually not, like natural product. It's more like, a French skincare line or something like that, that's very hypoallergenic, that's very geared towards sensitive skin. That's what I tend to use on my patients because the one thing, acne patients come in to see me and their moisture barriers are destroyed. They've been over exfoliating their skin. They've been over cleansing their skin. The moisture barrier is damaged. There's a lot of dryness. There's a lot of irritation. So, one of the first things I need to do is I need to repair the skin barrier. I need to stop the skin from being damaged because when the skin is being damaged, you're more prone to hyperpigmentation. You're more prone to scarring. So we really need to make that our priority. So the skincare that I choose to use with my patients is very gentle, very nourishing, very simple. It's not trendy, it's not fancy at all, but that is what I find my patients need.
So you just brought up scarring. Can you talk a little bit about, what you have seen in regards to addressing scarring that is already there, and maybe preventing scarring if possible?
Yeah, so preventing scarring is all about reducing inflammation in the body. So when the body is inflamed and there's an injury to the skin, you know, the immune system is going to overreact to that injury, and that's often when we'll get really bad scarring. So preventatively, that's super what we have to do: reduce inflammation, really nourish and repair the moisture barrier, get the body in a place where it's more resilient. Now, when somebody comes in with existing scarring, the first thing that I do is I'm like, we're not going to really worry about the scarring right now. We are going to heal the acne. So we heal the acne, we make the body and the skin more resilient. And then once things have cleared up, medical microneedling is hands down the very best thing to get rid of scarring. So I'll tell my patients, just hold on, we're going to get you there. This is like the whole cultivating patience practice, and let's heal you first, then we're going to get rid of that scarring. So that's how I approach it. Oh, you're muted.
I sure am, aren't I? So we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. Really do appreciate your time. If you can just go to the next slide so we can talk about the upcoming events. This is, by the way, how to
Oh,
contact Dr. Shillington. If you want to take a screenshot of this page here, these are Dr. Shillington's contacts on social media and the web. Next slide. And upcoming, we are going to be talking about stress next month, as well as having our career journey through talking to alumni, more alumni from naturopathic medical schools in July. And hope you all be well and stay well. And thank you, Dr. Shillington, again for sharing your pearls with our audience. Have
thank
a
you.
great rest of your week.
Okay.